Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us on SHOT Show TV. My name is Larry Keane. I'm the Senior Vice President for Government and Public Affairs at the National Shooting Sports Foundation. And I'm joined now with Dr. Jason Piccolo, who is the host of the Protectors Podcast and the author of Unwavering and Out of the Shadows. Doctor, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, tell the audience a little bit about your background and what you write about.
Okay, I'll give you my 30-second. I enlisted guy in the Army, did a tour in Iraq in 2005, 2006 as an infantry captain. I've also been an LEO for 20 years. I got a doctorate in strategic security, master's in forensic science. I'm married to an FBI agent, and write some books.
There you go. So you're in law enforcement, your wife is in law enforcement. You know, the industry, members of the firearms industry have a long-standing, cooperative relationship with law enforcement. Many people in the industry were former military, former law enforcement. Many people working in gun shops all across the country, or, moonlighting law enforcement officers. So tell us a little bit about, from the law enforcement perspective, how law enforcement sees the industry.
Absolutely loves it. And that's the thing, is right now the optics out there is like, it's two things. You have 2A, and we're going to enforce 2A if anybody tries to take our guns away from it. But law enforcement as a whole, we love the industry. We love guns, we love shooting, and we love gear. Everybody loves gear. And bags, and backpacks, and patches, and stickers, anything to do with the shooting industry. And nowadays, you're seeing a lot more LEOs in the shooting sports foundation, like shooting in sports. So it's awesome. It's absolutely awesome.
Well, we have a very big part of the show that's dedicated to law enforcement, the tactical market.
Yes.
And lots of law enforcement buyers here. We have a big law enforcement training and seminars for law enforcement officers, on a variety of topics. Plus, there's all kinds of products that are good for them to purchase, to use for doing their job to keep communities safer. And speaking of keeping communities safer, the NSSF has launched an initiative called Real Solutions for Safer Communities. And it's about just making sure that policymakers and the law enforcement community is aware about all of the things the industry is doing to work with law enforcement and with other partners to keep guns out of the hands of the bad guys, to help reduce suicides, particularly the terrible problem of veteran suicides.
Yes.
We're doing a lot there. And also just working to try to reduce suicides. And you probably know this, but most people don't. 2/3 of all gun deaths are suicides.
Yes.
And it's just, there's only so much the industry can do, but we're working with the largest suicide prevention organization in the United States to try to help reduce the number of suicides. So.
Well, I'm glad you brought up suicide, because it's not only affecting veterans, it's affecting the law enforcement community.
It is.
Look at the NYPD is losing officers every day to suicide, it seems.
Yeah, terrible.
And I'm glad that NSSF is doing something towards giving out the optics, and I love the word optics because we need it. We need ground truth of what's going on in the law enforcement community as far as PTSD, stress, and everything else.
Yeah, I actually was acquainted with one of the deputy inspector who was retiring and committed suicide in New York. Was a big hunter, big sportsman. That was terrible. It really was just horrible to see. So, but the other thing people don't understand, and we see this in the media all the time, is the attack on the industry by mainstream media, as if the gun industry is the source of the problem. When in truth, it's the retailers are the front lines on helping law enforcement keep the guns out of the hands of bad guys.
And that's the thing, is the media, you're only getting a 3 to 5 minute soundbite. And those sound bites will go on, they're only going to pull out one sentence, and it's either going to be good or bad. And that's what I like. We need to have ground truth. We need to know what is going on in the industry from the ground level. And we also, you brought up before, policymakers. Policymakers need to get the view from the ground. And that includes meeting with people like NSSF, like yourself, meeting with law enforcement people, meeting with the veteran community, anybody that's affected by it.
Yeah, I mean, we see law enforcement, from the industry perspective, not just as a customer, but our partners. And we work very closely with the FBI. We work very closely with ATF on things like Operation Secure Store, which is a new initiative. ATF came to the industry and said, we're seeing a spike in smash and grab burglaries of gun stores all across the country, and they steal a lot of guns, obviously. And ATF has said that these to ATF what bank robberies are to the FBI. I mean, why do bad guys steal guns from gun stores? Because that's where the guns are.
Yes.
So we've been working with ATF and Operation Secure Store to help educate retailers about how they can secure their inventory, provide them resources to make them less vulnerable, and to reduce and I will tell you, it's been great because over the past 2 years since we launched the program, we've bent the curve, and they are on a steep decline. They went down about 25%, and from in 18 over 17. And we just learned from ATF the other day they're down about another 25% on 19 from over 18. So it's really, the cooperative relationship is really having a great effect. It's working, and people are responding. And one of the things we do is we match ATF reward offers.
Nice.
And so there's more money on the street to encourage, people to provide information, and it's been very successful. And I'll tell you, Doctor, that's the one check I don't mind writing.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how you brought up, it's a partnership.
Exactly.
Build strategic relationships with the federal community and state and locals, obviously. I've been a Fed for 20 years now, and we need partnerships. Every agency does. They need to know what's going on. Hey, if we're going to encounter a gun, what can we do? How can we get that message out there?
So one of the other things the industry we've been doing for 20 years, it's actually the 20th anniversary, is our Don't Lie for the Other Guy program. We've been doing in partnership with ATF.
Straw purchase.
To stop, exactly, to help educate retailers how to be better able to identify and prevent straw purchases. And as importantly, is to get the word out through public service announcements to the would-be straw purchaser long before they ever enter a gun store that it's a serious crime, it's a felony, you can get 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. And so we're very proud of that. And when we do press conferences on the Don't Lie, we always have local law enforcement there along with ATF, the U.S. Attorney's Office, to help get the message out. And then I'm sure you're familiar with our other partnership effort with law enforcement on reducing accidents and preventing theft, which is, so tell the audience a little bit what that program is.
Yes, it's educational and secure your weapons. Secure your weapons.
Right.
It's not that hard. When I go home at night, beep, 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 I put my duty weapon away. You won't find a gun, any bad guys out there, you won't find any guns locked up. So it's all about education. And you guys are doing a great job with educating not only the law enforcement community, but the public as well.
So Project Child Safe's been around for over 20 years.
Yes.
And we've distributed over 38 million firearms safety education kits in every state in the country, every U.S. territory. And we have partnered with over 15,000 law enforcement agencies all across the United States. And during that time, accidents involving firearms has gone way down. I mean, incredibly over the last 20 years, while at the same time, firearms ownership has gone up.
Yeah.
So it's, law-abiding citizens having guns is not the source of crime. It doesn't cause crime. In fact, I think, I would be interested in hearing your thoughts on whether you think or law enforcement thinks that law-abiding citizens owning guns is a problem for the law enforcement community.
No, and we just learned that in Texas. You have an active shooter coming in and a law-abiding citizen took out the threat. That's what we need out there. We don't need the optics that I own a gun, I'm a bad person. No, I own a gun because I like shooting and I like having the right, and it is my right to bear arms. So absolutely.
Yeah, and while concealed carry has increased across the United States and gun ownership has gone up, what's happening with crime in the United States?
It's going down.
Guns don't cause crime.
No.
Guns in the
criminals
hands cause crime. That's right. And gun control laws, criminals don't obey the laws. I mean, that's why they're criminals, right?
Exactly.
It's definitional.
Exactly.
So, well, that's all the time we have right now. But Doctor, I really appreciate your spending time with us.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy your very first SHOT Show.
My first SHOT Show. Thank you,
Wear
sir.
comfortable shoes.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being with us.